Sony Computer Entertainment America presents a Universal Interactive Studios production. A game created and developed by Naughty Dog. Bandicoot 4!
It's Bandicoot time! Why is Crash turned around? Brothers and sisters, do you how do? Okay, now normally, I love entertaining y'all by just being a clown. I love entertaining y'all just about as much as Vince McMahon loves putting really stupid storylines in his wrestling.
Front's not an entrance. Tonight we're gonna do it WWE style.
McMahon wants God to get jiggy with it.
Today I kinda wanna just jump straight into this shindig and tell you all the purpose of these videos. Okay, if you've been watching the first and second Crash video up until this point, then allow me to give you my greatest thanks for listening to a fellow gamer's opinion on that dude. But to me, these aren't just the usual standard Crash Bandicoot reviews. I've told you guys since the very beginning that I want to give you my opinions on each of these mainline Crash games and how important they are to me. And that doesn't come without purpose. You see, anybody could just get up in front of a camera and just tell you that they hate this game or that game without any real objective. Shit. But I want to show why each and every single one of these games have a purpose for existing. Last video I talked about Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back being a video game that anybody should take note of for what a proper sequel should contain. And the way that I talked about Crash 2 could be a dead giveaway to some people that I might like Crash 2 over Warped. And you're absolutely right. And that doesn't mean that I think that Crash 3 is a lesser version of Crash 2 or anything like that. In my eyes, it still has purpose. The purpose of showing us that Crash shouldn't just stop after the sequel. Crash 3 still showed me that the franchise had a lot more potential and a lot more to offer. Anyway, Crash is getting bored over here as you can see, so might as well just move on to the game itself and actually talk about it.
Crash Bandicoot 4!
Ah, Clancy Brown, how you bless my ears. Any whore, Crash Bandicoot 4 was birthed after Crash 2 did the sex with Diddy Kong Racing. I'm not even getting that confused with CTR. You would understand too if you saw the amount of vehicles in this game, but hey, at least it's not worse than Crash 3 was just another example of Naughty Dog flexing their talent by spurting out another title within a year's time after the great success of Crash 2. Seriously, from October 1997 straight to 1998, quality games with yearly releases? I was seriously beginning to think that these guys were insomniacs. And no, I'm not even trying to make a really stupid joke there. I seriously think these guys were losing sleep making this game. On October 31st, 1998, Crash Warped bestowed its brilliance and contributed to one of the most iconic years in video games. Along with another Halloween release date, baby! 1998 was a crazy year for games, and I would think you would have to give Warped a credit. Yeah, your credit. Give Crash Warped your credit card information. 1998 was a crazy year for games, and I would think you'd have to give Warped credit for even a percentage of it. Man, all the things I could say about this game. This one in particular means a lot to me. If you remember what I said in the last retrospective, I talked about how this game used to be my absolute favorite Crash game. Although years later I grew too much of an appreciation for 2 and started to see the flaws of 3. 2 and 3, after all, do have this rivalry whenever anybody talks about these Crash games of which one is the better game. And I used to be in favor of 3 in that argument, until I came back to these games for nostalgia when I was about 16 years old and flipped that answer faster than Gordon Ramsay yells about flipping burgers.
What's that now?
That's a burger that I'm heating up.
A boiled?
Yeah.
You're boiling a burger? A boiled burger?
Alright, let's see what makes this pussycat pop. In other words, let me shut up and play the fucking game. So we begin with the story where bits and pieces of the Cortex Vortex are speeding through the Earth's atmosphere and wait a minute, so you mean to tell me that they're using the 100% ending for their canon? That's a little bit odd considering that they went with the regular ending in Crash 1 for the beginning of Crash 2's story. Why the switch in endings for these games? It's like Tekken choosing their endings for the canon. Oh, Kazuya's ending is canon. But wait, Heihachi's ending is canon in 2. Ah yes, both have freaky little smirks like father like son. Oh but wait, Jin's our poster boy for 3, so his ending's gotta be canon now. I don't know, I guess they chose this ending because it's super convenient for the plot, as we end up having one of the pieces of the Cortex Vortex smash itself into an ancient temple, where squishy, stretchy blue energy just floats away with the lowest I've ever heard Clancy Brown's voice go.
Freed at last.
The gang back at their home then get a feel for this energy's presence by the voice just having the sheer power to be heard throughout the entire planet. I mean, I don't know how far they live from this temple, but you gotta have some powerful vocal cords to be heard that far. But it's Clancy, so it makes sense. After that, Aku Aku gives us a brief history of this energy being his evil twin brother named Uka Uka. Oh my god, they're twin brothers and their names are literally just each other spelled backwards. Aku Aku then explains to us that eons ago he sealed up Uka Uka in a temple prison to protect the world from him, but now he's freed himself. Alright, so here's the part of the game where the story starts to make as little sense as possible. So Aku Aku proceeds to show Crash and Coco the time rift that was created by this freak that looks like he should be voiced by Will Ferrell.
Do you feel the taunting power of my eyebrow?
So Aku Aku wants Crash and Coco to use the time rift to their advantage to get to the crystals and gems as quick as possible to stop Cortex and Uka Uka. But what are they stopping Cortex and Uka Uka from doing exactly? Yeah, it's never clear on what the objective is for our bad guys over here. All I know is that big bad evil man was being controlled by an even bigger eviler bad guy the whole time. And while that's always a good twist, they never clarify what Uka Uka has in mind to stop us. As a matter of fact, it seems easier to beat this guy than it was to beat Cortex by himself in Crash 2. Cortex forced us to collect the crystals for his plan to enslave everyone in Crash 2. In this game, we're just pulling up and thieving the time rift to get all the collectibles because no one ever bothered to have proper security for this incredibly important time machine. Seriously, for something that seems to be so vital to Uka Uka's plan, he and this blue douchebag that he just seemed to hire out of nowhere don't seem that their own enemies could actually use this time machine against them. Hey man, it can't just be me. I mean, Cortex's plan in Crash 2 seemed like a way better plan than whatever this is. Uka Uka might seem all high and mighty at first glance, but like, breaking the story down, it just seems like... man, he's stupid, bro. And while I'm at it, let's talk a little bit more about the blue dude over here. Something that's always puzzled me ever since I was a kid was, why did they try to build this guy up like he was going to be the final boss or the main villain right under Uka Uka? He talks all this mad shit in the middle of the game just to end up as a mid-boss and never be involved in the plot again. The creator of the time rift that's helping us to stop Uka Uka and Cortex pulls up like he's going to be a real problem to us, shouting at the Bandicoots with what is practically racial remarks.
Pesky little rats aren't going to back off, eh?
The man carries himself as if he's the most powerful of the group, and then bam, gets clapped and then becomes nothing but a joke to the series from that point forward. Alright, let me stop talking about this story before it gives me more of a headache than Sonic Adventure 2's plot. After all, it is just a platform, so let's just talk gameplay. Now, if I ever wanted to play any of the original trilogy Crash games with someone, I would obviously pick Crash 3 because I think it allows for a lot of stupid fun. And if you know anything about me or have been subscribed for a very long time to my channel, then you know I like a lot of stupid fun. But the PS3 is still the best. You wanna know why? PS3 is still the GOAT. I want to say that the core game is still fun, but only by casual play. Any challenge or difficulty you want to gain out of this can only come from either getting the gems or relics. I only find getting through the levels and grabbing the crystals by themselves challenging in some of the later levels, like the tomb or the future levels. Now that's a good sign for progressing difficulty, but more often than not these levels this time around just aren't too satisfying to get through unless you're trying to get through them by getting the relics. I just miss my satisfactory Crash 1 difficulty, man. And if y'all don't like it, then...
sorry. You are not a man!
Here, let me provide some examples. As I was playing through the game, I got through the first 2 warp rooms only dying once. And that one was only because I was being a show-offy dumbass. But in the beginning of my playthrough, I kept thinking to myself, have I just built up too much muscle memory for this game, or is it really just this easy? But after playing the games before this one, I just realized, yeah, this game's a piece of cake. Yeah, when we're not talking about the vehicle levels, this game kind of plays it safe in terms of its level design. Some levels just kind of feel like they plopped a hole over here, oh, put 2 holes over there to make more of a linear path, throw an enemy there. Oh, and it doesn't matter how you kill the enemies, you could always just jump or spin on them, it doesn't matter, they're not move-specific enemies. In Crash 1 and 2, they did have move-specific enemies where you had to jump on one enemy, or spin on another, or slide under the other. In this game, you only run into about like 1 or 2 specific type of enemies that encourage you to use the power-up moves of all things. Level design in this game is watered down compared to Crash 2, where they had slippery ice to challenge you to keep control of your pace rather than mindlessly speeding through levels. Or like I said before, with creating enemies that make you utilize specific moves. yeah, bro, this thing still kind of weirds me out. Although this game does have its fair share of weird enemies. Alright, how did you manage to make something that looks like Crash but somehow make it more brain dead? What I'm trying to say here is you're not necessarily challenged to think of how you could use Crash's functions to your advantage. Unless we're talking about power-ups. The power-ups gradually get better.
Did I get a Zenkai boost? This is me on my Goku flex.
You get the super belly flop, the double jump, a longer lasting spin attack, a bazooka that shoots Wampa fruit, and the ability to run faster than Crash's usual jog. I'd be the first to tell you that I thought that these power-ups, or lack thereof, were super dope when I was a kid. The super belly flop shockwaves could have just been built into Crash's regular belly flop in favor of a more creative power-up to be crafted, but I'll cut it some slack considering that it's the first power-up in the game. So it kinda shows that Naughty Dog were aware that this power-up kinda lacks creativity. Some of the other power-ups, however, do step it up. I like the idea of dragging out your spin to get over bigger gaps, and having a power-up that lets Crash spin, and having a power-up that lets Crash sprint. It allows for the idea of time trials to be a lot less stressful. Speaking of which, time trials are kinda dookie doo-doo. All the power in the world to you if you manage to have fun collecting the relics for this game. But unfortunately, speeding through these levels isn't the most fun of ideas for me, especially since the levels do very little to compensate for being on a timer. The most you get in terms of changes for hitting that clock in the beginning of each level is crates. Just crates that vary from 1 to 3 seconds of pausing the timer whenever you hit them. That's about it. Nothing about the level design or the vehicles. Trust me, we'll get to those in a bit. Do anything to make the experience feel natural. Wait a second.
This is just Temple Run.
There's no faster pace or difference in flow whenever you're going through these levels. Really, when you break it down, most of the time it's just level memorization and thinking of when to wait and when to just skirt! And honestly, I don't feel like challenging myself to get sapphire or gold relics. And the sapphires are required to gain access to the hidden warp room. And the gold relics are just extra effort because look at me, I'm shiny! I guess the most you'll get out of these is, bragging rights. While it's not really my cup of tea, I encourage anyone new to try the trials out to make these levels a little bit more challenging for yourselves, albeit challenging for the wrong reasons. Alright, I've gone on long enough without talking about them. So vehicle levels are a thing. Yeah, sorry for the fact that I've been avoiding talking about this aspect of the gameplay, but that's normally because the vehicles are probably the biggest part of what might divide people between Crash 2 and 3. Now, a lot of the times the subject matter floats between thinking that the vehicle levels are a good thing for the game because of variety, or saying, bro, who cares about variety? These things control like dick. If I'm being honest, I lean more towards the side of the vehicles being one of the least fun factors of this game. Looking into Crash 3's development helped me realize that Naughty Dog were really fixated on doing things that were completely new to the PlayStation. For instance, since it was so graphically impressive for Crash to jump in and out of water in the sewer levels of Crash 2, they made levels where everything floats in water from point A to point B. Never mind how Coco's jet ski controls like ass. Look at all this water. Or because of the fact that we have a more free-roaming camera as opposed to a linear fixated camera, we have airplane dogfights across the sky. Never mind how I'm getting war flashbacks of Jak and Daxter the Lost Frontier. God, make it stop! Some of these level ideas really make it feel like it's nothing but tech demo type stuff. Like when devs play around with a new engine that they just got their hands on.
And that's probably one of the most important programming things. If the game doesn't feel good, if it's clunky, then it's not fun.
Damn, you know, I wish they would have taken their own advice.
Not to say that the game doesn't entirely control well, the base game does, just 9 times out of 10 the vehicles don't. The dog fights are dog shit. The water skiing feels like a drunk guy vomited all over my Wave Race 64 cartridge, and the motorcycle physics happen to only be slightly less slippery than Crash 2's ice physics. But hey, to give him some credit, the Pura levels are more fun than Temple Run. Overall, the gameplay of this game really leaves me 50-50 about it. I like it, and I want to like all of it, but I'm not going to leave this video off on a sour note. Because of the fact that my review format is weird enough for you to tell that I have ADHD, I talked about the aesthetic and art direction in the later half of my last 2 Crash videos, and we're going to do the same for Warped over here.
I will keep it 100 with you guys. I think the one thing that Warped excels at over the past 2 Crash games is, for without a doubt,
Presentation!
This game knocks it out of the park with the art direction. This game already left an endless amount of possibilities for the levels, considering that Crash and Coco are traveling through time and space in this adventure, and Naughty Dog really went ham on this game's locations and designs of said locations. I mean, they practically went
to infinity and beyond!
I mean, you go from medieval times, being able to look at all these castles you're trying to reach from the beginning of the level, to Egyptian levels, raiding tombs like your polygons are about as pointy as Laura's bazookas, all the way to space because spaceship battles on the moon are fucking cool, dude! This game is filled to the brim with memorable set pieces and detail that really makes this feel like an unforgettable journey.
To this very day, I still vividly remember every level set in this game, more vividly than Crash 1 or 2's. Don't get me wrong, the
lush organic environments
of 1 and 2 are still very memorable and even breathtaking back in the day.
But this game's art direction makes you want to believe that this is the grandest adventure of the 3, especially with the characters that stand in your way this time around. Reoccurring characters consist of Tiny Tiger waking up grumpy because mans didn't get his Frosted Flakes, and Mr. Igor over here in the same space robot from the last game, but it's actually complete. But the new characters are great as well, really making themselves threats in this new installment. Instead of Cortex telling you how dangerous these bosses are like in Crash 2, the bosses actually threaten you themselves via vortex transmissions whenever Crash and Coco go through a warp hole. Dingodile feels like a serious threat with how he tells you he's basically going to burn you alive. And forgetting the fact that I call this dude Megamind, Entropy is extremely confident in his abilities, calling us what's possibly derogatory terms in the Crash universe, and then gets really heated when we get to his boss fight. These new characters are pretty cool and left a lasting impact with their arrival, especially in Dingodile's case. I mean, he used to be my favorite villain for real. And as much as I shat all over Uka Uka in the beginning of the video, to be real, he's pretty cool too. The mixture of his tribal dark theme and his almost flaming aura with Clancy Brown's menacing vocals.
None dare to fail to break Uka Uka even once. But you, Cortex, you have failed me twice.
This guy certainly carries himself as the biggest baddie in the Crash universe. The way the game ends with both Cortex and Uka Uka stands to me as one of the greatest boss fights in the series, if not the greatest. Uka Uka and Aku Aku duking it out with their magic while you're platforming to finish off Cortex.
Ayo, y'all know what time it is. It's time to figure out how the tunes be tickling. You feel me? I mean, what else could I say about the music in this game that hasn't already been said? If anything, I feel like I would be repeating myself from the last 2 Crash videos that I did. Just a couple of other bangers. What else can I say?
When you get down to it, some series can offer spectacle in ways others can't. Crash Warped blew my mind as a child, and looking it up as I've reached my more critical side in adulthood, I can acknowledge how impressive it was for its time, even if it doesn't reach my standards for what makes the most beautifully balanced 3D platformer like when I was gushing over Crash 2 in my last video. Crash Warped still proves to be worth something, showing off how spectacular the PlayStation was. This little gray box is wonderful, and the world deserves to know it. But hey, don't just take my word for it. Play a game like Crash Warped to see just what this box has to offer you. Crash Warped is a good, climactic finish for the original trilogy. It has its fair share of problems, and in my honest opinion, I feel like it's the weakest of the original 3. But if anything, I feel like that's just my personal bias taking over. It's not a bad game by any means. This game is chock full of memorabilia and plenty of things to appreciate. A lot of it is pretty ambitious for the days of the PS1, and it showed me that Crash could be one of those franchises to push boundaries and bring new innovative things for the gaming industry. To me, that's what this game is to the original trilogy. It's that one that's full of spectacle. It sacrifices some of the base gameplay that made Crash 2 so enjoyable in favor for some of the vehicle levels that are graphically impressive for the PS1 at the time. The series left off with some gripes, but overall on a high note. For now, I'm gonna calm down on the Crash content. I'll be coming back to this retrospective on a later date for sure, but for now, I got a lot of things cooking up here that I think would be fun for a lot of us to take a look at. Anyways, brothers and sisters, thank y'all for hearing me out. If y'all like this little retrospective that I've been working on for quite some time and you want me to continue it, smashing that like button is the best way to let me know. I mean, it's YouTube. You know the complex. But until next time, guys, peace, love, and take care of yourselves. Till the next one.